Hi, I'm your host, Ryan McKeen.
And I am Marisa Rua.
And welcome to another special episode of The Way podcast.
Welcome to The Way with your best era hosts, Ryan McKeen and Brittany Green. The podcast where we dive deep into the world of legal business and marketing. Each week, we'll be discussing the latest trends, strategies, and insights that are shaping the legal industry. So whether you're a lawyer, marketer, or business owner in the legal industry, this podcast is for you.
Hi, Marisa.
Hello, Ryan. How are you today?
I am doing awesome because Brittany just left to go get Sally's Pizza.
Yeah.
So we've got to make sure that we get this episode in under a half hour or so because the pizza's going to be ready at 1 o'clock and it's like 12:40 right now. 10-minute ride. We want those pies hot.
Yep. Then manja.
But we've got something really super important to discuss today because one of the things that's going on right now is it is incredibly difficult to hire people. It is especially incredibly difficult in personal injury law firms to hire lawyers.
Yes.
Like, that's not going away. That is a structural problem that is here, that's going to be here. Like, we cannot wish that away. Brittany and I, on our last episode, gave a whole bunch of ideas as to how firms can best navigate those waters. But it occurred to me that part of this here is getting more bandwidth out of what you have. Mm-hmm. And a big part of that is paralegal training, paralegal development in the personal injury space to help you serve more clients. And, you know, personal injury is different than a lot of other areas of law. For example, like criminal law, you need a lot of lawyers. The lawyers need to be in court. Family law, lawyers are in court all the time. Court, right? But personal injury like bankruptcy or immigration requires a lot of like non-court work. In fact, when we were a Connecticut trial firm together, I mean, our lawyers were almost always in the office.
Yeah.
They're very rarely in court unless there's a trial or something. So it is a lot of office work. And, you know, when I sort of think about ideal staffing ratios in a personal injury firm, and I'm talking like a general single incident personal injury firm, not a med mal personal injury firm. I mean, ideal staffing ratios are about, 6 legal professionals to 1 lawyer or 10 legal professionals to 1 lawyer. Those are the kinds of ratios that really allow a firm to let everybody do what it is that they're best at.
I agree. One of the tasks that was new to me when I started at Connecticut Trial Firm, but was something that I kind of did on the back end anyways at other firms, is the negotiations of settlements. That was new to me. That was a task that I was surprised I was allowed to do. It's kind of something in our profession where we feel like, oh no, like the attorney has to completely handle that. But once you are provided with the proper training and what you should say, what you can't say, that was probably one of my favorite parts of the job.
Yeah, and it's not just like abdicating. Like, it was never just like, hey, Marisa, settle this case or whatever you think it's worth. It is like, hey, we think that this case is a policy limit case. Here's why we think that that's a policy limit case. But the machinations of settlement are exhausting. You call the adjuster has to look at something. The adjuster says, I need more information. And you say, I sent this. Well, you have to resend it. And then they have to talk to their boss. And then they relay an offer and you've got to talk to your client. And so like there's this, it's not a simple hit pay on online on Amazon kind of thing most of the time. I mean, sometimes it is, but oftentimes it is voicemails and adjusters also, they love to leave voicemails. Like, they're not sending emails. They know they don't want the process super quick. And if you're a lawyer and you're in depositions and you're, handling all of this is a time-consuming process that's likely, your time is likely better spent elsewhere. So if you have somebody who you're like, here, you have a very good paralegal or case manager, and you're like, here, get the policy on this. If they're offering less, you can come back to me. But sort of like we think about sometimes with AI, where it's like 10% of the work is done by the lawyer at the beginning. 80% of the work by the paralegal, and then the
Yep.
final 10%, that can free up a lot of time when you're talking about hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of cases.
Yep. And getting the bottom dollar from your client, especially, that is something in the beginning or when you're starting to negotiate what the claim might be worth. Before you send out a demand, before you make any type of settlement offers or negotiate, you get the bottom dollar from the client. That's something we also did is, we have a meeting with our attorneys and maybe we go over 5 cases at once and we say, okay, these are the ones that are being prepped for a demand. I think this case is worth this much, and this much. And then you go back to your clients and you explain that to them and you say, what is the bottom dollar that you will take? And to a reasonable extent, it's not just leaving it up to them. It's you explaining the case to them, what you think it's worth, them saying, okay, I won't take anything less than this. And that way you have it in the system. So when you're going back and forth, like Ryan said, with the adjusters, they're leaving you voicemails, they're not sending you emails back. It kind of cuts that back and forth and it expedites the process for settlement. And then that's all on our end, where now the attorney's in a deposition or it's in the back of their mind maybe, but they're not having to focus on it unless we come to them with an issue.
That's right. And look, in different jurisdictions, this practice may be ethical, unethical. So you're obviously going to want to check with your jurisdiction. But insurance companies do this all the time. It's called a settlement authority. I have settlement authority for X, right? These are not lawyers that insurance companies are using to convey this. So, that is just one example of lawyers. And if you're trying to maximize time, to me, if you have a successful personal injury firm, your lawyers should really be doing one of only actually a few things. Making sure that complaints when they go out, are right. Because it's really important to make sure that you're pleading the right things and that, you're monitoring the statute of limitations, you're suing the right defendants. Yeah, you can have those drafted for you, but ultimately you as a lawyer need to make sure that that is absolutely correct. The same in that bucket goes with discovery, right? Paralegals and case managers should be helping you prepare discovery, but you as a lawyer have to make sure that it is correct and you know your case and you've gone over it with your client. That's a good use of time. But other than those things, and obviously you're responding to if there's motions and things like that, you should be in depositions, you should be in mediations, you should be in trial. Those are the things that your lawyers should be doing. They should not necessarily be leaving voicemails for adjusters all the time. There's a lot of opportunity to get things off your plate that can make it so maybe a lawyer could say they can handle 65 cases instead of 50 because things are organized, systematized, because they have good help, because they're not doing it themselves. And everything in a well-run personal injury firm should be that people are working towards their highest and best skills. Yeah. And so when we had paralegals and case managers, we didn't have them do intake and file setup.
Right. I think another thing also is setting expectation with your client from the beginning. So it may seem like a challenge at your point right now, but if you just change up the structure of your next couple intakes, you'll see that clients are very accepting of how your law firm operates. We set expectations from the moment that they signed their agreement. So, we don't take unscheduled calls. That doesn't mean that we're not going to answer you if there's something serious going on and you need to talk to us. But those scheduled calls really helped us understand, okay, does the client need to speak with me, the paralegal, or do they actually really need to speak with the attorney, or vice versa? That also helps with limiting the amount of attorney-client interaction that is not really necessary.
Correct. And what we found was that what clients really want isn't attorneys. Like, I know my attorney friends, that might hurt your feelings. It might. We like to think that people need us and that we're special, but in fact, what they're looking for are people who can solve their problems.
Yeah.
And they're looking for people who can solve their problems quickly. They're understanding that if you're a litigator, you might be in deposition, or you might be doing a focus group, or you might be in trial, you might be doing all of these things, and that you can't respond to them right away. But they can't wait 3 days to figure out if they can get their car fixed, okay? So that what they really, really want is answers. And if you build out like modern case management software, it should be very easy for lawyers, either through reporting, or we use FileVine feeds, or things being escalated via Slack or whatever it is, to be kept abreast of the most important things that are going on in a case.
Yep.
And you should be, and sometimes the paralegal may message you and say, hey, the client called about this. What do you want to do? And you can give the answer, and then the paralegal can relay that, as opposed to you being on a call for 15 minutes, a half hour, having to make notes of that call. All of those things, really, you have to look at your firm really like a giant cell phone battery, where it's like, okay, you have so much juice in a given day.
Mhm.
How are you using it?
Correct.
And that juice in your firm is time. And the more you can elevate your time and elevate everyone's time and delegate downward, the more efficient that you're going to be, and really the less attorney dependent you're going to be. Because, I often think, Marisa, and you come from a medical background, most people don't hire lawyers, but they go to their doctors.
Yes.
Right? And if you go to a doctor's office, doctors get this.
Yeah.
You sit in the waiting room and you're greeted by somebody at the front desk, and they give you forms. Yep. They check your health card. They make sure that everything is good. Then you go into an exam room and some other person comes in. I don't know what their title is, but they, how's this? How's that? How's this? How's that? They weigh you or whatever it is that they do. And then you're sitting in this little room, and then the doctor, you hear the knock on the door. The doctor comes in. Okay, how's this? How's that? Do you have any questions? Nope. Boom, you're out of there. And then you go back to the front desk and you make an appointment for the next year, or whenever that is. So dentists and doctor's office have this down, and really, you have to think about your day. If you're out there, how much does your firm operate like a dentist office or a doctor's office? And I can tell systematize people doing specific roles, people not doing things that they don't need to be doing. Mm-hmm. Therefore, you're increasing the capacity of your lawyers to handle really only the most important things that only lawyers can handle.
Right.
Only lawyers can go to court. Only lawyers can take a deposition. Only lawyers can try a case. Mm-hmm. There are things that only lawyers can do, but there's a lot of things that people who did not go to law school can do, and can do very, very well.
Yes. Yeah, I agree with that. And I think if you're looking at your firm right now and you're saying, oh, I don't know if this person could do that. It's not that they can't, it's just that they don't know that they can. And I think that's very important to remember, is that they're going based on authority from you, the attorney, on what they can and cannot do on a case. There's things that I didn't think I could do prior to working with Ryan at Connecticut Trial Firm. And then, came into the roles, paralegal, I was doing litigation. There's things that I realized I was able to do, and I did them very well, and I enjoyed them a lot. And job buckets is another great system to have. Is each role you can go on and look at what your specific responsibilities are as a paralegal or a litigation paralegal, case manager, VA, an attorney, a pre-lit attorney. Having those structured allows you to excel at your position.
Right. I think that the days of, I talked about this with my friend John Nickhazel from Mike Moore's firm in Fireproof, is one of the discussions we had with him one time was, are we ever going to hire a complete attorney again? And does that make sense? And let me say what that is. So typically you can think of a model of the practice of law as on a very simple level, the lawyer does everything, right? The lawyer does the intake, the lawyer writes for the medical records, the lawyer drafts discovery, lawyer does the deposition, the trial, the motion practice, the appeal, whole 9 yards, right? But one of the things as things become more specialized is maybe your attorney is not very good in court. Maybe they stumble over their words, but boy, can they write. Yeah. Or vice versa. You have somebody who is so quick on their feet, but their writing looks like, ooh, no, you don't want it. But these are very sort of truisms. So if you were to hire an ideal team, it's a team of specialists, right? A team of very good writers who are drafting your complaint, a team of people who are doing nothing but depositions and litigation, and maybe a team that's doing nothing but trial. So you all get very, very good because you're getting a lot of repetitions. The best way to get very good at anything is to get at bats. And so when you train people and you have pre-litigation case managers and you have litigation attorneys and litigation paralegals, like they can get very, very good at what it is that they're doing, develop really efficient systems because, hey, look, all they're doing all day long is doing discovery packets.
Yep.
And they know where to look, what to look for, how to do them. They know the ins and outs. And then that's when you start to realize a whole lot of efficiency. But you just can't do that, right? Because in a lot of smaller firms that we've worked with, it's like, maybe a lawyer and they have a paralegal and maybe they have some assistant and it's chaotic because they're doing the litigation, they're helping clients get a rental car, they're sending out letters of protection. Okay, but you need to be able to train people, hire people, and sort of stack them to leverage as best you can. And you have to set them up for success.
Yes.
Like there are so many good people who get fired from law firms because the firm failed them, not the other way around, where it's like, are you giving them the proper training? Do they have the proper tools to do their job? Law firms are notoriously bad at training because they're busy. They've got this fire, this, that. And if they have an extra bit of time, they're burnt out. And they want to maybe spend time with their family or whatnot. Right. But you have to think about, the key to solving this on the back end. Yep. We did in Charleston, back of the house, front of the house. The key to solving this on the back end is really good training and feedback systems.
Yes, I agree.
Because we didn't just drop you into here, negotiate this case.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I mean, having those systems in place that you're either new hire or maybe it's somebody within your firm that's transitioning from pre-lit to litigation paralegal, having those systems in place where they can go and see this information and how it's done and who they should reach out to with questions is very, very important for success.
And having written systems.
Yes.
And having systems developed in your case management software. Templates. Yep. Having, a private wiki that we had. And also having live in-person trainings like we did lunch and learns.
Right. Yep.
And also going to different trainings because sometimes you just presented to Connecticut Trial Lawyers Association, hearing it from an outside voice or you hear new things. Like that's important, but those opportunities can be very hard to come by.
Yes.
So sometimes there can be online trainings or online courses, ongoing support, like you have your Slack community.
Yes.
That needs to be on. But it's like Brittany and I talk a lot about marketing and always needing to be investing in doing it. The same thing comes true with training. It cannot be oh my gosh, we have a new hire, we have to train people. It needs to be every day that there is something going on where you are keeping people abreast of changes, both in the firm, out of the firm, changes to law, new technology, changes internally. Like, hey, we used to do it this way and now we're doing it some other way and here's why.
And I think another very important thing to note is that every single case manager, paralegal, VA, whoever you have needs to have the exact same amount of training as anyone else. So you may have a lead paralegal that you might send to do all this, but now it's her responsibility or his responsibility to now relay that to your entire firm. Whereas if you provide that specialized, unique training to everybody, nobody has to be the sole holder of information is what we never wanted. Nobody should be the only one to have that information.
See, this is a common thing that comes up in a lot of business books, Marisa, which is, like a common example of like a car dealership. What happens is they take their best salesperson and they make them the sales manager. Okay. And then their sales go down because they took their best salesperson off the sales floor and they put them into a role of maybe training and supervising other salespeople that they may or may not be good at doing, that they may or may not want to do. And it's sort of like, if you have a LeBron James on the court or Michael Jordan, you don't take them and make them the coach.
Right.
You're like, hey, go out there and, shoot as many threes and block as many shots as you possibly can. That's what you want them doing. And so if you're a law firm, the sort of default as we see as firms sort of grow is like, hey, this is a really competent paralegal and we're going to take their time and we're going to use that person to train. And it's like,
Yeah.
like they may be resentful of that. They may not be skilled at training. Teaching is its own art form.
Yes.
And then also you're taking away somebody from their work. Like there's only so many hours. And, one of the things that as we grew Connecticut Trial Firm that was on our list to hire was a trainer. We were getting big enough internally where we felt somebody ongoing, doing ongoing training. We ended up leaving the firm before that happened, but that would have been a position for us sometime under our 50th hire. It was that important. But if you're not able to do that, like leveraging outside training, again, that is a way to really add to your bandwidth and do it quickly, not use up your attorney time, not take people away from their files, and not make them, feel maybe resentful that they're the one who is stuck doing it.
Yep. I think hiring within as well is very important. If you have an entry level, maybe receptionist that does some legal assistant work, and you're opening for a paralegal and you've had this legal assistant for a few years, I feel like offering that to them and seeing the skills that they can bring prior to hiring experience will be more internally beneficial for your firm as well.
Yeah, and in my look, we hired a lot of different people at Connecticut Trial Firm, hired a number of different paralegals, and in my opinion, experience is the most overrated thing, because a lot of the experience that people we sometimes hired or thought about hiring was bad experience. And then they would not be willing to unlearn things. We once had a paralegal quit a week in who was like, yeah, I need paper files and you're not going to give me paper. I'm like, no, we're not. No, we had gone through this and explained that this is the way we work. But this person, when they got in, could not handle this, which was okay. Not everything's going to work. But again, this person had a lot of experience.
Yep.
So if you're hiring paralegals, you really need to be hiring for attitude, aptitude, willingness to learn, skills. Are they good with people? Are they detail oriented? Do they work hard? Like, give me that, because none of what we did in a personal injury firm was rocket science.
Right.
It's all learnable.
Yep. An experience to include paralegal certificate or type of degree. It's the same thing. I went to school for legal studies, and anything that I learned there is not the same that I learned on the job. It's just like law school. Like you go to law school and you learn the book, but you don't learn the real life aspects of being a personal injury attorney or a criminal defense attorney. That's all learned from experience within the firms.
Correct. And so to me, the real benefit, and like, look, people who have been a paralegal, say for 20 or 30 years, they've got salary demands that are very, very high. Say you've got somebody who works in, food service, and they're looking to change jobs. Their salary may be half of what somebody who's been at it for 20 years is willing to deliver. So you can say, okay, I'm going to spend, say, just for even numbers, I'm going to say the experienced paralegal is $100,000. Somebody who's looking to make a career change is $50,000. Well, guess what? If I invest $5,000 to $10,000 in their training, it's still $40,000 less than the very experienced paralegal.
Correct.
And I'm getting somebody who might learn how I want it done.
Yep.
And might see the world in my way, which may be different because we work with a lot of firms and no two firms are alike. And oftentimes I think success isn't just how good somebody is, it's how good they are within like the system and how good they are on the team. It's sort of like in a sports team, right? It's like you could be a really good running back, but if your offense is all passing, like it doesn't quite work as well. So being able, I think, to nail down those things, ongoing training, investing in training is what we do, which is the way forward, which is why at Best Era we have launched Para Era, because it was like the thing that when we were out there, we were like, we wanted this.
Yes.
Whether it's courses and materials that they're putting together, individualized trainings, group trainings, we couldn't spend enough because every dollar we spent would probably return us $10 to $20 in terms of efficiency, happiness, retention, client satisfaction, and ultimately money. Because in my opinion, most of the time in personal injury cases, the enemy is not the defense counsel. The enemy is not the insurance company. The enemy is internal organization. It's not having your files in order. It's not recognizing that there's a lien. It's having an unhappy client. All of these things are so costly, and none of them are caused by big bad defense lawyer.
I agree.
So chaos, lack of training are the problems, and training and investing are, and I say it as an investment, like it's not a spend. It is something that if you do will return you lots of money because it's the right thing to do.
Yes. And they want it.
They do.
Your team wants it.
Because you're showing them that they matter.
Yes.
Like, hey, you matter. How you do your job matters. I'm going to invest in you, and I'm going to invest in this. And it's a great way. Look, if you're out there, you want to keep your good people as long as you can, and making them feel like they matter by showing them that they matter is what really good firms do.
And I know this was a struggle for me, especially when I was new in the paralegal world. It was hard to ask for the training. If something came across my desk in the mail, like some type of seminar, whatever the case may be, it was always hard for me to ask for that. So if there's any paralegals or legal assistants, case managers out there that are kind of hesitant, just ask. The worst that they could say is no, but at least you're trying. If you really feel like, you need training or you need a little bit of advice on how you could better, manage your day. If there's help out there, I encourage you to ask for it.
All right. So, hey, we are at our half hour.
Yes.
I don't see Brittany here, but I
think
feel she's here.
I think she just walked in.
Oh my gosh. So we're going to enjoy some Sally's Beats, which we are incredibly excited about.
Yes.
You come visit us in the Glastonbury area. There's a Sally's like 10 minutes from us here in Wethersfield. That is delightful. So Marisa, we end these podcasts. Like, what are you listening to?
So listening,
I'm
watching. It's the new series on Netflix, Adolescents, and it's a mind bender. I'm very into the true crime. This is not a true crime, but if you like that, you'll like this, about a young boy who is accused of murdering another young person. And I won't ruin it for you, but it's good.
So there you go. True crime fans, check that out.
Yep.
Thanks to Brittany, who I just filmed with right before you. I am now listening to Lady Gaga's new album, and I just listened to Abracadabra. But prior to that, I'm watching the Red Sox and enjoying this baseball season.
Yep.
Well, all right.
Opening
So,
day.
hey, and I got to ask now, if you're out there and you enjoyed this, you got something from it, please leave us a review. We don't have any podcast reviews, which makes me sad. I know we have listeners, so please leave us a review. And so if you're out there listening and you're interested in Marisa's services, please check out Marisa, and we're happy to help fill this opportunity for your firm. Now I'm smelling the pizza, so goodbye.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of The Way with Best Era. Be sure to visit our website, bestera.io. From there, get more resources, insights, and to connect with us directly. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform. That way you never miss an episode. Until next time, keep striving for your version of success.